So we'll leave Pam's contract on because I think you guys got the votes for it, right?
Yep.
It's been approved by the prosecutor.
You good to Sam's contract?
I am, yeah.
Legal overseeing it.
Morning, Brad. Sometime today I'll have to call you because I've been talking to these, there's lots of development with their, about their track. It's had to kind of take a, hard line, back Shirley on because of, he's removing the basketball court and stuff to be in compliance with it.
Good morning. It is 9 o'clock. It's January 24th. We're here for our regular scheduled Commissioner Board meeting. We have a full slate of commissioners, our administrator, Mr. Davidson, and the clerk of the board. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and please ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, the first item on the agenda is our report from the legislative update. Potts and Associates, are they on the phone?
Yes, sir.
All righty, well, go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, and I hope everybody's doing well. I want to start out, thank you guys very much for having us back. We really enjoy representing Franklin County, the people, the commissioners, and it's always a pleasure. So, again, we work at your guys' pleasure, and so if there's anything you ever need, please just let us know. We do work with the Association of Counties, and so we're in the know with the different issues and topics that the counties in general can all agree on, issues that might affect taxation or something across the board. We do a really good job of, I think, of keeping you guys informed of issues that might be more specific to your county, and maybe even some of your neighboring counties, and we can work on a smaller level with you guys where, for example, King County doesn't care about something that you guys are doing. We can step in and help you out. So I wanted to thank you again, and I'll give you guys a brief overview of what the 2023 legislative session is shaping up like, just from a high level, and then I'll get down into a couple of issues that I'm sure you guys are interested in. So this is an interesting year. This is the first time we've been in person in several years, and it's actually been a little bit different because right now 40+% of the legislature, including the legislative aides, have never been in an in-person session. They've never had to have people come up to them and bug them as they're coming out of committee, or have people stare at them and, give them the angry eye that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing or whatever. And it's been difficult for the legislators that haven't been in this position before. And we're starting to see that in some of the legislation that's coming out. You'll have different bills introduced from the same house and the same party that are trying to do somewhat the same thing in different ways, and the lobbyists have actually had to go to some of the legislators and say, hey, have you talked to your seatmate over here, because they dropped almost exactly the same bill. You guys might want to work together. And it's oh, yeah, maybe we should do that. And so there is an educational component here where, the people who've been around, the institutional memory is helping those of the members and the legislative aides kind of catch up to the in-person session, which it's been kind of cool to see, and it's really neat. Now, the other thing that we're seeing, it is mostly an open legislature. Restrictions to the actual legislative offices You got to go through security now and tell them who you're going to see and go back and see them. And once you're behind the doors, it's okay. But there have been some threats made to the campus police, campus security guys. So they'll keep those security protocols in place up on the Hill for a little while. Kind of sounds like they're probably not going to be there for a really long time, but they are there. Now on things just in general that I wanted to talk about here with respect to some legislation that we're seeing. Some of the stuff that we're hearing a lot of information on right now, and a lot of this, it may or may not affect you guys in the same way that it affects everybody else. There are a lot of firearms bills. I know that in the past you guys have paid a lot of attention to the firearms stuff, and I can tell you there's probably, I haven't counted, but it looks like probably 20, 25 bills that are dealing with firearms from both sides of the aisle. Some more restrictive, some more permissive, some, Second Amendment declarations, things like that. I will continue to make sure that we keep you guys apprised of those bills and how they're going. If you have any specific comments, please let us know. Right now, in general, the firearms bills are kind of a hot potato, if you will. Nobody wants to touch them. Even the sponsors are going, oh gosh, we don't want to, we'll see what we can do. To get through cutoff, if we have to push them forward, we do. But it's a politically sensitive environment for both sides right now. So it's really difficult to see what's going to happen with the different firearms legislation. In fact, the Washington Sheriff's Association has come out publicly opposed to the governor's proposals. So that's been kind of interesting. I think that was a message that was sent that, hey, we might not want to touch this. One of the other bills that we're seeing a little bit of interest in here from the local level and how it actually impacts kind of riparian areas, and I don't know that it's a huge deal for you guys, but it's House Bill 1215, 1215. It talks about concerning the protection and restoration of riparian areas. This definitely kind of starts to dip into overlapping with the voluntary stewardship program. I'd encourage that you guys look at it. If you have any individually or as a group, any statements that you'd like us to share, Representative Chapman is great to work with, and he's asked for feedback from the counties. Just in general, I'd recommend just kind of go look at it. It's not anything that's going to be huge to Franklin County, but it could preempt a couple of some planning that you guys might have done. Another one that's definitely of interest right now, and this one it's really interesting. It's Senate Bill 5440, 5440. And this one specifically is talking about the timely competency evaluations and restoration services for persons suffering from behavioral health disorders within the framework, basically in your jails. It's an interesting deal. It's a governor ask bill or a DSHS ask bill. And basically what it talks about is providing a mental health evaluation within your jail to individuals that are brought in for true blood crimes, misdemeanors, Class C felonies, things like that. Part of the issue, obviously, that we have about this is we're already tight on jail funding, and there's a few things that come down with this particular bill, and we've been in communication with the governor's office, and we're going to start working with DSHS on this. There's really no conversation whatsoever about who's going to pay for this. And the other issue that you've got is that it is actually unconstitutional to host these services in a county jail, and that's actually come up. And so there's definitely some, I guess, roadblocks, stumbling blocks that are going to come to light with this particular piece of legislation that could be very difficult to overcome for the bill. So it may not pass. If it does in its current form, it will end up in court literally the day the bill passes. Now, that said, King Pierce, and I think Yakima County have just filed a lawsuit against the state specifically talking about these true blood crimes. So it's not about this particular bill, but it's about the services specifically that are going to be required to be implemented under this specific bill. I bring that up because it's important to note that two of the biggest counties in the state have already filed suit against this. So you're in the same boat with this bill that they are. And so, you know, we're not fighting it from a small rural county perspective alone. This is going to be every county in the state is just going to be diametrically opposed to this bill right now until we can get it paid for. So that's the big one on 5440. We'll kind of hold back on that and see if you guys have any comments. Please feel free to share them with us, and we will pass those along. Just know that this is being really heavily addressed kind of across the board. The governor's office has taken a pretty hard line on this particular piece of legislation, saying that we want to push this through. And it kind of comes, I mean, this is conjecture, best guess. They don't know how to handle these cases. They don't know how to pay for it. So they're kind of trying to pass the buck down to us and maybe buy themselves some time. I don't really know. And I'm not an attorney. I'm just guessing on that. So the next one, and this will be the last one, I promise, and then I'll shut up and let you guys ask a few questions. We have quite a few bills coming out right now with respect to climate change, a climate emergency, and then what it's coming down to, and this is just something I want to make you guys aware of, and this is not a comment to climate change, the climate crisis, climate emergency, whether it exists or doesn't or whatever side of the fence you fall on. It doesn't really matter with what I'm going to say here. What is happening is in the intent section of quite a few of these bills that are dealing with or referencing climate change and the climate emergency, what they're saying in the intent section is the Washington State Legislature finds that because the climate emergency exists, it is affecting fish, therefore we are going to take X action. And that's just in the intent. Just to be very clear, it does not actually make it into code. However, what that declarative statement does is the legislature finds that because of climate change or because of a climate emergency, we're going to do X. It frames the rulemaking process. And what it does is it frames the rulemaking process for DNR, agriculture, ecology, whatever, through the lens of this climate change emergency exists without referencing any science, without referencing, or without telling the agency what studies they have to look to when they're implementing rules. For example, there's a bill out there talking about because of the climate emergency, we need to plan water systems better. Well, okay. In this example, it's great. I think planning water systems is a great way to go about it. You probably should plan a little bit. But when you put that open statement that is declarative at the beginning of it, that says because of the climate emergency, now you frame that in the rulemaking process, and it forces the agency to look at your water system planning from a climate emergency without saying, well, what part? I mean, our climate emergency could be the ice caps melting and the water coming way up, or it could be a drought. And so they don't really reference that. And that could be a little bit concerning for us specifically in the fact that it would very potentially kind of supersede some of our control at the local level of how we know how to do things without giving us any background to fall on. No case law, no precedent, nothing to say, well, you can't do that to us because it says it in the bill. So it's just kind of an open-ended mandate. With that, I know that's a lot. Any questions, comments, clarifications, anything you guys would like to know?
Questions? Mr. Davidson, anything?
Just one clarification, Zach. You said something about a question of the cost of Senate Bill 5440, of who would pay
Yeah.
for that. The language of that bill, if I read it right, it very intentionally shifts that cost to the counties, does it not?
You are absolutely right. It clearly and concisely shifts that cost to the county.
That's why we should be so concerned.
That is why you should be so concerned about it, because it shifts the cost to the counties and it identifies zero funding for the state. And in fact, the comment was made to us from the governor's office, well, you can come to the state legislature and ask for money for that.
One other question, Zach, is for clarification also. Does Senate Bill 5540 have a House counterpart?
5440,
Yeah,
right?
5440.
Okay, does it have a House
5440.
counterpart?
Currently, there is no House counterpart on 5440. There's no companion bill right now.
Okay.
Zach, this is
Doesn't mean
Commissioner
that there
Pack.
won't be, but right now. Yes, sir.
So 5440 is likely to become contentious under the unfunded mandate restrictions in the state constitution. In previous challenges to those unfunded mandates, Wasac and counties have learned that when the legislature has given authority for counties to raise taxes or revenues to pay for a service, then it is effectively not an unfunded mandate. In this case, the governor's comment that the counties can go to the legislature to get funding doesn't meet that test. There has to be an existing function, say the 1/10 mental health tax. And that's one of the things I think we need to keep an eye on and be sensitive to, is that the state may be thinking that they can require us to provide these evaluations in our jails under our 1/10 mental health tax, which we've already described and committed in most respects to our local mental health treatment programs. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind if you see any indication that that's how they're attempting to get around the unfunded mandate requirement in the Constitution. I'd like to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will keep an eye on that, and keep in mind as well that there is a question about the constitutionality of even providing these services within your jail. So there's quite realistically two constitutional questions, if not more, just in this piece of legislation as it is.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that one of the side steps for that is that they're going to say, that's fine, you don't have to do it in your jail, you can do it in a local facility. And then we add
Yeah.
transport costs, so,
And on top of the cost of providing the service, yes.
right.
Yeah. So definitely some big questions. And to be entirely honest with you on this, we're not even sure how to work on this. The sponsors are not, I mean, we know who they are. They're not working it very hard. So there will be developments. We will keep you apprised. Anything that comes up, absolutely, we'll make sure you're in the know.
In particular, if it gets a hearing in committee, we should know.
Absolutely, we will do that. So right now, it has just been read into Law and Justice. There is no committee hearing yet.
Commissioner Mullen, any questions?
Zach, this is Commissioner Mullen. What can you tell me about Senate Bill 5286?
5286. Well, let me pull it up just so I make sure I'm most recently up to date. 5286. We'll tell you where we're at. That's the Medicare Leave Program. So it looks like they sent it to Rules, and it's passed out of committee. So that it looks like they're definitely going to move this thing a little bit. Basically, it just recalculates the rate for paid family and medical leave. With respect to how it's going to impact you guys at the county, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to hand down for you guys. I can look into it and see what, direct impact it might have on a financial level. I'm assuming that's what you'd be concerned about.
Well, I think that the constituents should know that that Family Leave Act is more people participated in it than what is expected, and so now they're taking $350 million to bail out the to add to that fund. And also it doubles your percentage from 0.4% to 0.8% of your income. So they're going to double that.
It does do that. Yes, they've actually, I mean, like you said, they got more people enrolled than what they intended and need to pay for it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Mullen?
That's it for me.
Okay, well, Zach, I just got a question. We just seen the implementation of this carbon fee for fuel. Is there anything in the works to increase that? Because I was told that they are looking for $1 a gallon.
So the same issue arises. Yes, we're probably going to see something along those lines with the gas tax, or they are still looking at the mileage tax, doing a pilot where you can volunteer to put a tracker basically on your car, and they'll track your mileage, or you can pay a flat fee. This is not a new thing, but what they've got is they've got dwindling gas tax revenue, and that's what they've predominantly funded the transportation department on. And apparently they didn't take into consideration that electric vehicles would come along and cars are getting better mileage. So they're just seeing just a fall off in transportation revenue. So something like that will come around, and when it does, especially in the rural communities, especially like you guys, I mean, you guys have fruit production, you have, tree fruit, you have small grains, you've got ships, you've got trucks. I mean, it disproportionately affects Franklin County as compared to, say, King County, Pierce, Snohomish, that don't have large agricultural producers moving literally our nation's food source. So that comes up every year, and we will be hot on that one.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question was for water. You've brought this up already, but I sit on the Columbia River Policy Group, and there are talks of the health districts being involved in safe communities. Can you tell us on this?
So there's a lot of question around the health districts being involved in safe communities. Here's the problem. It gets too convoluted because now you've got the health district, the commissioners, the whatever other district that might have jurisdiction over these different services, especially water. And, then you got VSP, or you've even got this riparian side of things with 1215 coming in. And the question is, it becomes jurisdiction and potentially overreach. So it's pretty contested. We will see where these issues shake out. It is really driven by West Side interests. You come out into the Skagit, and obviously, you get into the bigger counties, there's a lot of people, and water usage is a big deal. Out where you guys are, even a Class B water system in a small town in the middle of nowhere, really, I mean, they can manage themselves. So this becomes an urban-rural kind of issue, again.
All right, well, thank you very much, I believe.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys, and as always, please let me know if you have any questions, comments. We're available, text, email, phone call, anytime. And Commissioner Peck, the steering committee runs really, really well with you sitting up there at the front of it, so thank you for all your work there.
Thank you, Zach.
All right. Look forward to hearing from you again here soon, Zach.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. You guys have a great day.
All righty.
Bye.
So, Mr. Davidson, I believe you had an announcement?
Yes, I asked the board permission. I have a conflict today, so I just want to announce that I'm on the board of directors of TVW, that brings the legislature on cable TV. They have a special meeting today, and so I have to leave at 9:45 to attend that meeting. So as such, I ask that we pull under administrative office business, a code of conduct, to pull that from this day's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from December 15th and December 22nd. Is there any additions, revisions, or corrections?
No.
Okay. We move down to the approval of the registers, vouchers.
Vouchers, we have 2 today. Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $693,014.35 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the Auditor's Office and the County Administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in a total amount of $1,126,539.72 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the Auditor's Office.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Next, we'll move down to the consent agenda. I believe there's 2 items on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, move to remove. Actually, let me change that from a motion to a request. We can motion if necessary. I'd like to remove item 1 from the consent agenda. The proposed contract has been through civil legal review years ago, but was only reviewed as to form. They don't review as to content. And there are what I believe are fatal flaws in the content of that contract that must be addressed before we can approve them.
Okay, we'll remove consent item number 1, so that remains just number 2 on the consent agenda.
And I'll provide input to county administrator over the next week so that he can see what those problems are and address them with legal counsel.
Move for approval of consent agenda item number 2 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for approval of consent item number 2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we'll move down to Special Olympics athletes that are present in the room. Mr. Sullivan.
Good morning. This is the time of year that I enjoy the most. It's when the Special Olympics team comes and talks about their successes and gets to interact with you all. And so the Special Olympics here, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Donna Tracy with the ARC had approached me in my office about seeking county funding to help bring back Special Olympics, and both counties thought it was a worthwhile endeavor and contributed funding and through contract to the ARC to help support Special Olympics. And so as part of that program, Donna Tracy with ARC comes and gives an update as to how that funding was spent and brings some of the great athletes to talk about the successes that they've had in the program, and I think they brought medals, so they get to show off their bling. So I'm going to turn this over to Donna and let her talk about the program and then introduce the athletes.
Wow, thank you very much. We look forward to this. And after your depressing meeting, that's so depressing listening to state issues. So I want to celebrate our local community and all the good that happens here. And I've been fortunate to work at the ARC for 30 years now. And so grateful for Kyle and the county stepping in the plate and helping us bring local Special Olympics back up. We've been able to recruit more coaches. We've been able to bring on additional sports. And so I brought some athletes to celebrate their successes. And so we have Austin. And Austin, what sports do you do? Track and field. And and what other sport was it? Bowling. And matter of fact, he competed at the state level for bowling. So he did really well. And then we have Jeff. You can stand up, Jeff, if you want to. Jeff, we brought him last year. He just signed up for Special Olympics. And he did flag football, and we weren't too successful, but we're in basketball now. We have great hope that he'll come back with a medal next time. So thank you very much, Jeff. And we have Clifford. And Clifford, what sport do you do?
Track and field.
Yes, and he got this bronze at at the regionals in Spokane.
It's Spokane.
Yes, very good. Oh, and then we have Sawyer. Okay, and Sawyer, what sports have you done?
Bowling. I'm doing basketball right now, and then I do softball and soccer.
Right, and he just won at the state level at our fall games. What did you win?
silver. Well, first I won gold and then silver.
So we did really well there. Very good. All right. And we have Jeff, and he helps Austin. We appreciate him. I wanted to bring somebody with you that really reflects why we do this. And Carly, I'm going to have you stand up. Carly's been volunteering at the Ark since she was 11 years old and helping us through our buddy clubs and everything. And then she started coming helping us in Partners and Pals, donating 8 hours a day for weeks and weeks. She gave up most of her summer, all her life. We ended up finally, when you were what, 17, 18? We ended up hiring her. Well, we have, honestly, 100 volunteers in summer camp trying to support special needs kids to come to camp because we can't afford it. And Carly represents this group of kids, and now she's working for the Ark year-round. But we have a lot of them. And what's really great, it changes your life. And now we're starting to see that in Special Olympics. We're starting to recruit youth to come and help and make life changing. It benefits our community. We want lots of Carlys. Thank you, Carly. Yeah. And this is my daughter, Tiffany. And honestly, Tiffany, what did you get your medal in?
Volleyball.
So volleyball, this is her first year in volleyball. And what's great about this endeavor, it used to be everybody in town came to bowling. We filled the bowling alleys. If you went on a bowling alley Friday night, you couldn't get in between the hours of 4 to 5 because 250 athletes were bowling. But that's all we did. And now we're doing flag football and volleyball, and we're having more year-round sports. And it's a blessing to our families because as a mom, you want your children to have friends. You want them to be connected. And it really helps me and Tiffany get along better. She has more people to talk to than just me. All right, and then we have Kobe. And Kobe's new to our community, and she did the polar plunge and dove in the water this last weekend, and so did Carly. And but Kobe represents, I'm getting 60 years old, guys, and I can't keep up anymore. And so Kobe's helping me out, and we're getting the Ark to help give her some hours and replace me in that way. I'll still be around, but I just can't keep up with the whole thing anymore, so, and I'm just not as young. But we really want to thank you very much for all the help in making this possible.
Well, we want to thank you
Oh,
for what you do and for the donation of your time.
we couldn't do it with all the volunteers in our community are outstanding. There is a man named Jerry McHenry who's kept the Special Olympics going in our community. And because we have a local office, we knew about it. And we were able to give him Coach of a Lifetime award because he kept Special Olympics going for us when there wasn't an office. So we wanted to thank him for all his years. So good things are happening. Oh, yeah, he does cycling. All right, well, thank you very much.
Congratulations to the athletes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you, commissioners. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the introduction of a service officer. Kyle?
All right, so I get another item, and so back in early in 22, we had a bi-county meeting to talk about expanding services for the veteran community. And what came from that, there was a presentation by Steve Gill at WDVA talking about some of the benefits of having a county-funded veteran service officer. And so I think it was August, we brought John on board, and we had I was shocked at the applicants that we had for this. I had what I would consider subject matter experts come and help me in the interview process. We had a representative from the Benton County Veteran Advisory Board, from the Franklin County Veteran Advisory Board, and then the executive director at Columbia Basin Veterans Center helped me interview. And I think it was like 50 or 60 applicants, and there were there were great applicants, but we felt at the time, and I still firmly believe that we got the best of the best. And so, as part of what we had talked about earlier, I wanted to be able to bring John to introduce him to you. We wanted to let him get his feet wet and get up and working and doing the job, so that he could provide you just a brief. This is what I do, and then certainly entertain any questions that you guys might have. And so I wanted to introduce John LaFay, and he's our County Veteran Service Officer. Come on up and meet the board.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is John LaFay. I have been on the job for about 3 months now. And after retiring from the Marine Corps after 27 years, my wife and I are both from Washington State, so we wanted to come back here. And I was lucky enough to kind of walk in, right as applying for jobs in the area, to walk into this, and I feel it's been a really good fit for me, and it feels within my kind of my wheelhouse, and kind of also kind of continue to serve others. So just here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, commissioners?
I really don't have any questions. I just want to say welcome aboard. It's nice to meet you.
I've got a couple. First, welcome and thanks for taking this on. It's a position that I think we probably should have arranged for a long time ago, but better late than never, as they say. And from everything I've seen and heard, you're an outstanding example of what we need for a veteran service officer. The question I would have is that under the state Department of Veterans Affairs, and this is in 4360A 230, it talks about state funding for VSO positions, and it's a first-come, first-served funding, and it's predicated and designed for counties of 100,000 or less. And the latest census numbers put this county just under that threshold at about 96,000, if I remember. So we probably got an opportunity for a year or two to pursue those state funding opportunities, even though, as Mr. Sullivan said, we're funding this locally. Anytime we can squeeze a buck out of Olympia, it's a victory for us. So not so much a question, but just an observation that at least in this initial year, we might take a look at that as a way to maybe reduce some of the burden on taxpayers for the cost of the position. And once we go over 100,000, which will probably be in a couple of years, if not sooner, then I'm 110% behind us continuing to fund it at the local level. And if I've gotten any of that data right, Kyle will correct me.
Well, I did want to add. I am familiar with the program that you're talking about. I did turn in an application to receive that funding. We just weren't awarded the funding, and so I will certainly try again. But
all right. Well, it was intended as awareness mostly. It doesn't surprise me in the least that you've already done it. It's sort of a pattern with Mr. Sullivan. You ask him a question. Oh yeah, I've already done that. Anyway, thanks very much for accepting the position and helping to take care of our veterans. And I think I can speak for the board, but especially for myself, if you need help along the way, don't hesitate.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to say thanks for serving the veterans. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right. Next, we'll move down to the transfer of funds in Facilities Department.
Good morning. Last year, around September, the Facilities Department ran into a number of issues. One of them was the main fire line servicing the courthouse and the public safety building failing. During these issues, we spoke to Mr. Davidson, realizing that this was going to exceed our budgetary necessities for 2022. And now here we are in 2023, discussing with Tim Anderson, the Director of Finance, and asking for a transfer of $61,700 for the Franklin County Facilities Department to cover overages for 2022. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Things break that you can't foresee and budget for, so this seems like an unavoidable, necessary support.
Indeed.
I believe one of these was from the mishap of the sheets in the sewer system.
Sheets and uniforms of the jail,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. created and Mr. Davidson was down there helping out.
I do appreciate you going and looking at our issues. That's nice.
We had a camera way inside the sewer lines trying to find that plug, so we got to watch a lot of dirty movies that day.
So it's probably a good metaphor for the adage that there's always more than one way to attack a problem.
Yeah,
In this case, going to the other end of the pipe and pulling instead of pushing seems to have been the solution.
yes.
Yep, it did.
So
I
with
see this
that-
has already been signed by a couple of my fellow commissioners. Do we still need a motion on this?
No, I've got the Jennifer Wagner one right here. Those are the consent agenda.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2023-022 as presented.
023, correction.
Have I got the wrong,
Cover sheet on the wall.
oh, this is the one you just handed me. Sorry, I assumed it was for this action. Okay. 023.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-023. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move down to the administration position update.
Pam? Pam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have a couple of updates here on the compensation project update. Basically, we have a team of 4 who've reviewed the proposals, and this is considering the reclass salary survey and job description.
Yeah, we can't hear you through the mic.
Oh, really? Okay. So this is regarding the reclass and job description project. The respondents were HR Compensation Consultants, Gallagher Compensation Connections, and Evergreen Solutions. I've done extensive reference checking, as has John, with his colleagues, and it was very interesting, the trends that jumped out. The HR professionals were for the most part, pretty positive. Department heads, not so much. I know that one reference said that Gallagher was superior because it was composed of HR professionals who knew how to do compensation. So that was an interesting factoid. Other things that were interesting were how people developed their comparables. Walla Walla is using, for example, the cities around them, the Department of Corrections, the school district, and those, just areas where they're bleeding out people to. And Spokane County is using basically the city of Spokane for their interest ARB positions and using other counties for their non-interest ARB positions. Let's see, I'm still analyzing the costs of each proposal before making a selection, which we hope to do with my team next week, early next week. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know before I move ahead with the above in the selection of a vendor. Okay.
So before you move on, you mentioned, John, for the benefit of the audience, John,
Rosenau,
the county assessor.
the county
Right.
assessor.
Yeah. Not everybody knows who John is.
Okay, good point. County administrator update is the second point, and basically this is for the replacement of Dwayne. As part of that effort, we need a process which is approved by you, and we've taken the liberty of putting some steps together, which is normally used in the staffing process for executives, which you may or may not wish to consider. We need a sound strategy, financials, and operating model to attract the best candidate. And so I have given you this. Do you have this in front of you? This handout? Yes, exactly. So these are a list of steps that are normally undertaken in the when you're doing executive search. And if you have anything you want to add to that or delete from that, if you could kindly let me know. One of the things that I'm kind of running into is that we didn't put a salary range on there, and I think it would be very helpful to put a salary range. So for the remainder of the posting. So, and that's the end of that.
So I wonder if you would review for us the actions taken under the stakeholder engagement meeting, which says done, and the development of marketing collateral that says it's done.
Sure, so we had an initial meeting, and basically just to discuss, where we're headed in this process. Development of marketing collateral is a posting that we put on the board in our advertisements. We have what's called a short version and a larger version. And that's all of our advertising that we've done. We've also done some direct sourcing for candidates, and we're just basically collecting resumes at this point.
In the stakeholder engagement meeting, who were the primary stakeholders for that?
Basically, I met with Dwayne and just basically myself and went over the steps in this process.
Okay.
Once again, this is subject to your approval, or if you want additions or deletions in the process, please let me know.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So next, we have the Human Resources Director Contract, Resolution 2023-024. Mr. Davidson, you have some?
Well, I was on my way out, but I just heard that, so.
Yeah.
So I go ahead and say that I have, we've discussed this with all three of you. We've modified it to, I think it's a good uniform package. We hope to roll out to other directors, and it has been signed off as to form by the prosecutor.
All right.
Mr. Davidson, I know you're on a tight schedule. My questions are going to be directed more to you, so if you are able to hang on for an extra minute or two,
Okay, sure.
I'll be quick. First off is, I don't recall having seen this proposed contract. Did that get sent out to everybody? Am I just simply, did I miss an email? Am I not remembering it?
The
proposed,
have for approval right now?
right.
Oh, it wasn't sent to you as part of the read-aheads?
Well, I'll just hold off on that question. I'll go back and double check. Maybe I just missed it.
Okay.
It could very well be there. It wouldn't be the first time. In the ASR, the one that you signed saying you're certifying the above information is accurate and complete, quoting from the ASR, it says, it was discovered that several of the directors have severance agreements. Several of the directors have severance agreements, and several do not. There's some discussion about what is and isn't a director, but set that aside for a minute. The people I'm aware of that have severance agreements have them, one, the county engineer, because they're extremely short supply. And when you get one, you like to have a severance agreement so that you can attract them to actually take the job. And the other is our planning director, who was provided a severance agreement as a necessity for him to take the risk to move from the Spokane area down to here. Help me with my memory. What other of these several directors that have severance agreements am I forgetting?
Well, of the directors that I have under my, Larry also has a contract, and it's actually,
Larry Ziegler?
yes.
With
I'm sorry,
OPD?
OPD.
And he's under your
Yes.
purview administratively?
And I think one of the things that, when it comes to our IS director, our HR director, and also Jennifer with facilities, I think the merits of having a severance package just gives them a little bit of freedom to feel that they can be assertive in their jobs and not be so, timid to responses they make to commissioners and to myself. I think it has merits on that standpoint too. And I think it looks bad that currently, right now, the half of my directors that have these type of agreements are all men and the women don't. And I would like to rectify that and have this template extended to the women directors also.
So are you suggesting that there's been some gender discrimination under your leadership?
No, but I don't want any to occur, so I want
Are you suggesting that the reason that there isn't one for the HR director is based on gender?
I'm not saying that, but
Good. I want this on the record, because any suggestion to that usually leads to
but this
litigation.
would help make sure that it doesn't ever rise in the future.
Yeah, I don't think it's a gender issue in the least. Well, listen, You can stay for this part whether you want to or not. I know you've got to get going, but I've just got two other comments I want to make, and then I'll be done with this issue. First is that severance agreements can be an inducement to attract highly qualified people who are assuming a risk of leaving an existing position to come here. It's used as an inducement to attract people. Severance agreements do not aid in retention, although others will disagree with me on that. I feel strongly about it. In some cases, the cushion of a severance agreement can actually induce people to consider departing because they've got a financial buffer to another place. So the notion that it helps, keep people on board. It was previously suggested, in fact, I think by our current HR director, that it would serve as, for lack of a better term, a cooling off tool for a board that might take irresponsible, sudden reactive actions. So to that, I would say that those suggestions that a severance payment obligation necessary to cause a board of commissioners to pause or be cautious in firing key employees is, in fact, a complete fallacy. And the evidence of that is that we had two separate attempts by a majority of this board to fire without notice a highly qualified county administrator. If it didn't serve as an inducement for a cooling off period in those cases, it certainly wouldn't when it came to an HR director. So I don't think it serves as a cooling off. It doesn't aid retention, and the individual's already been hired. So the question really is, where's the value to the county? I suspect these two gentlemen will happily vote for it, but I want to be on the record with my views. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the extra time. I know you're on
Mr.
schedule.
Davidson, I would have to say that I think this gives the HR director the freedom to speak to the commissioners without restraint.
And hopefully we'll roll it out to the other directors so that all 100% of
Uniform.
the directors feel the same way.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you better hustle up and get down to that meeting. And with that, do we have a motion?
I have an additional comment on the subject, Mr. Chair, before we move to a motion, and that is, for anyone who is working for this county that has a severance agreement, please don't misinterpret that as some sort of a protection or guarantee for your continued employment. As history and videos of these meetings show, there's no reluctance to fire qualified people without notice in the blind. That's not any kind of a forbearance. It's certainly not any kind of a threat. It's not an activity that I've engaged in, nor will I. But this board has. So don't misinterpret the value of that. Thanks.
And that is the opinion of one commissioner. So with that, is there a motion?
Move to approve Resolution 2023-024 as presented.
I second. There's been a motion and a second for Resolution 2023-024. All in favor say aye.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Is it this board's intent to move forward and do severance agreements for all the other directors such that we can ensure that there isn't discrimination or disparity?
Yes, we'd like it uniformed.
So that's the intent, is to do it for all the directors?
Everybody, exactly.
All right. Thank you.
So with that, all in favor say aye.
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 With the understanding of the chairman's last statement, aye.
All right. So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment?
Commissioners, one, I'd like to report to you that this man over here is actually representing people, the veterans of Franklin County, pretty well. I'll tell you that I have a son that's a Purple Heart recipient, has 2 Medals of Valor, Navy Achievement Medals, served in Afghanistan, and his government cut him off of some of his services as far as paying for dependents and those type of things because of his status. I asked one question of who I could have help him out, and I was given this man's card, and within 2 weeks, services that had been cut off to him for nearly 8 months were restored. So I'm appreciative of what he does and looking forward to him representing the veterans of Franklin County. Thank you. Yeah. So, with that said, I would like to draw your attention to last night's city council meeting in Pasco, where Kyle Sullivan was up providing discussion to the council members to try to talk them into signing over money, for lack of better words, for mental health services, et cetera, et cetera. I suggest you look at that and take some consideration in what's going on, because in true Jim Raymond fashion, you're being backdoored. So you might want to pay attention. In the coming weeks, I've made arrangements with Commissioner Mullen, myself, some city officials, and some representatives from the Recovery Coalition to travel to Spokane to look at a mental health treatment facility that they have up and running in a county building, to look at it as maybe a viable option on a stopgap for what's taking place in Benton County. So I'll leave it at that. Rocky can maybe fill you in on some of that. But I plan on continuing to stay engaged in these services, and I plan on demanding from each of you that before we write one check for the 1/10 of 1% that the community of the mental health money, that this community, our people, get involved in that process and part of the decision-making processes. Thank you.
Karen, is there anybody on the phone? We don't have our administrator. While you're looking, we have another gentleman come to the mic.
Good morning, Commissioners. Stephen Bauman. I was at that City Council workshop last night and listened to that presentation. And I would encourage you to watch that, specifically starting at about 20 minutes into that meeting, and listen to the director of the monies that we in Franklin County impose on our taxpayers for the good of our citizens, and the way that it is portrayed, how those monies are spent. I wrote it down last night that we are in a memorandum. It used to be a bi-county led organization, or I'm not sure exactly how it is, because I've never been able to understand exactly how this is. And as you know, I'm very engaged in the community, and I certainly don't understand how these monies are spent, how much they are, and where they're directed. Last night it was described that it used to be 3 county commissioners from Franklin County and 3 county commissioners from Benton County that made these decisions together. And I believe the term was bifurcated. That was bifurcated, and the leadership is now in Benton County, and it is operated on behalf of Franklin County through a memorandum. And so I'm not sure who or how to ask this question, but I would like to formally ask for a copy of this memorandum of how our monies are being spent through that organization, and where the accountability is. As you know, I've been at almost every commissioners meeting for the last number of years, and certainly watch online and pay very close to that. And I haven't, I don't remember hearing a report or an accountability given for how those monies are spent. I found it interesting last night, as was described, the head of this organization manages tens of millions of dollars. It was described last night as there's a handful of grants, or a few grants, that equate to more than $50 million. And in that description, it did not include the money that we send to that organization to be spent on our behalf for residents of Franklin County. And would certainly ask for you to do a full review of how our monies are spent and the accountability for those. And it was last night I found the information that was provided in that presentation to to be fascinating. The scope and size of which I had no idea until it was described last night. I did appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Maloney asking some detailed questions and digging a little bit deeper. And he had some pause and some additional questions that he wanted to be answered as to understanding of the way. For lack of a better way of describing it, there seemed to be it was being asked to trust us. We know how to spend these monies well. And while I appreciate trust, and I appreciate that, our form of government is that we put you three gentlemen in place to be our representation. And as the way I see it, your job is to decide how those monies are spent and to direct that and to put the guardrails in place and to keep organizations that spend those monies between those guardrails. So I would appreciate your review and some type of a report back so that we can have an understanding of how those monies are spent. Thank you for this opportunity.
Anybody on the phone? Anybody else in the audience?
Kathy Sant, Franklin County. I see that there's a administration office business on the code of conduct / meeting guidelines coming up. I'm just going to ask if you would ask people to speak into the microphone when they come. Sometimes people come from the back of the room, they start speaking before, and when you watch from home, you can't hear a word that is being said. And also the time limits, I'm seeing some discrepancies. If the board is pleased with the commenters' use of the time, they can go over their time limit. If they're not, they are asked to sit down after 3 minutes is up. So I would like to have some consistency on that rule also. And there's been some public accusations against elected officials. Obviously, the prosecutor is near and dear to my heart. So when public accusations have been made that have then been proven false, there has not been any apologies made afterwards publicly. So those are just my comments on when you discuss that issue. I don't know if you're going to vote on it today or not, but I would just like to say when we do the Pledge of Allegiance in the beginning, when we say justice for all, it doesn't matter if it's people that believe in the same way as you do. Everybody should have the same privileges and rights. So those are just my comments. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Nobody on the phone? We'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Our administrator has left, so Commissioner Peck.
At the WASAC meeting yesterday, focused primarily on security of our data and our servers with respect to elections as well as network security across the board. Last week, I spent Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in Olympia. I chaired the Legislative Steering Committee for the Washington State Association of Counties. We went through an exhaustive list of bills that are before the legislature, reviewed the priorities of the Legislative Steering Committee group. And then I had, that was on Wednesday and Thursday, and then on Thursday and Friday, met as a member of the County Road Administration Board, which is the state board that certifies all of the public works leadership, especially the county engineers, to ensure that they have the appropriate credentials. They issue the annual certifications to the county, the certificates of good practice, which are the necessary credential for us to get any state and federal highway dollars. And we also distribute all the gasoline taxes to the counties and the state. So it's a fairly worthwhile board and activity. So those are the three highlights for the last week. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen.
So I had the Washington Highways User Federation legislative briefing talking about transportation concerns, electric cars, kind of learning as we go. With the use of electric cars, there's a possibility of increase in tragic car accident deaths. I don't know if most people are aware, but electric cars weigh about 1,000 to 2,000 more than a gas-powered car. So, and crashes like that, it's quite an impact. Another concern with electric cars is that California is asking residents to charge off at peak times, which makes sense. You know, if you're going to use electricity, you might as well use it off on an off-peak time. But the problem is they're already addressing this issue, and California only has 4% of their cars that are being electric. What's going to happen when it's 50%? Traffic deaths have declined in most developed countries this past few years. And the United States has seen an increase of over 30%. So, also met with Fire District 2 and Hospital District. There's some serious needs that need to be addressed for public safety, and we're working on a solution to address them. The county has some remaining ARPA funding, and while there are different wants for this funding, I'm here to say that this situation is a serious need. I'm asking my fellow commissioners to recognize the needs of North Franklin County, and that we have the opportunity to use some of these ARPA funds to help remedy the safety concerns that we have. And those concerns are ambulance service in North Franklin County and in Colotis, and specifically out to Palouse Falls. The city of Colotis right now doesn't have an ambulance, so if you get injured out there, they're going to have to come from Connell. And with the increased activity coming from Coyote Ridge and the use of the ambulances there to move patients to Pasco for hospital visits, there's a great need that needs to be addressed there, because the last thing you want to do is need an ambulance out in Palouse Falls or Clotis area, and the wait times are tremendously long. So we need to get that addressed. It's like I said, it's a definitely need. It's not a want for that money. It's a need, and it's a need that we need to be addressing. I also want to say thank you to all the volunteers throughout Franklin County, as we've seen here today with the Special Olympics. It's people that give their time. It's sometimes a thankless job, and we definitely want to thank them and recognize them. I believe that time is the most valuable resource that anyone has. It can be given, but it cannot be given back. Franklin County has volunteers throughout the emergency management and fire departments, EMTs, that work to ensure everyone's safety. And I just want to extend a big thank you for all that they do and for donating their time and efforts. We need to award them with the equipment and funding to support those efforts. Also last week, met with Jason Zakara, Director of the Benton Franklin Health Board, to discuss the agenda for upcoming assignments. And also we will be working on the interview process for health officers and that recruitment for the new position to replace Amy Persons. Also had a disability board meeting, which we also had some technical difficulties, and which resulted in a lack of a quorum. So that disability board meeting will be rescheduled to this Thursday at 2:30. Also had the emergency management payroll emergency management meeting with the election of the officers. And the current chairman is going to remain the chairman until or later on this year. He will be retiring, and I will be the vice chair of the emergency management system. We also had the special board meeting on Friday, rescinding the resolution 2022-307. Also had meetings out at the HAPO Center with some of the situations that's happening out there and our current vendors. Also partook of the WASAC meeting yesterday that Commissioner Peck had just described. So also attended the City of Pasco Council meeting Monday before last, not yesterday, but last Monday, in regards to the sale of cannabis in Franklin County. Actually spoke would be my opinion from everybody that's reached out to me. I didn't have anybody in support of it personally to my office, but definitely had several expressing concerns that are against the sale of cannabis in Franklin County. Also met with John Rosenthal, the county assessor. Just want to let people know that in eastern Franklin County, which would be my District 2, they're going to be sending out surveys as far as your property and your current use. He's trying to gather information so it's a fair and equitable distribution of taxes that they're based on true data, the data that we actually use here in Franklin County and not a state average. It's not fair to tax our citizens on a rate for, let's say, dry land farming that's an average from the Palouse, which is one of the world's largest, greatest producing dry land farming areas in the world. We can't compare what their yields are with what we yield in Franklin County. So he's asking for this information to be true and accurate, and so we can get a fair and equitable taxing system for all residents of Franklin County. And that is it. Thank you.
Well, my last week consisted of meeting with Todd Epic on the problem that he had with water going through his house. And it seems as I looked over the situation that the culvert, which is an old concrete culvert on the one side of the road, is plugged up, and there is no culvert on his side of the road, so all the water came towards his house. I think this is something that can be remedied, and remedied pretty easily. Had a meeting with the administrator right here in this room with Joe Schmidt, talking about the hospital districts and the need for help for District 2 because they don't have an ambulance, as Commissioner Mullen stated. And with Coyote Ridge turning into a geriatric prison where they're shipping older prisoners, the frequency of calls out there is, they went over the last 24 hours and 3 of the 5 calls were out to the Coyote Ridge. It's a detriment to our community because we are paying for this. We got on the phone and we talked to Joe Schmidt. He's going to talk to corrections. And of course, Palouse Falls is a state park designated by our governor. And we have also a lot of calls there. We also have 2 of the major highways, 395 and 17, that are, one's a fed and one's a state, that are demanding on our ambulance services. So we're trying to help our hospital districts with the funds from the, what's the second?
American Recovery Act.
American
funds.
Recovery Act. We're going to use some of the funds there, but we're also looking for the state for help here because of Coyote Ridge and Palouse Falls. And then I had the Columbia River Sustainable Water Coalition meeting. There we found out that we don't only have adjudication, but safe communities. This is why I brought this up to Potts and Associates, was the fact that they're trying to make sure that although drinking water is safe for the people to drink, and agricultural was the #1 listed problem for safe water. Emergency management meeting, as Mr. Mullen was on, and there they were talking that other counties have sources of revenue from taxation up to $1.52. We're at 21. They want to increase it. I made mention that an increase wouldn't be a bad thing, but we also have the hospital districts that are going to be increasing taxes, and I said the less the better, and so they increased it a dime. In the Hanford community meetings, the waste treatment plant is where they're planning on burning 45,000 gallons of diesel a day. And I made mention in this that that ain't going to look so good when we're imposing a 40-some-odd cent tax right now on every taxpayer in the state who uses diesel. And they want up to $1 is what I've been told, and they're going to be burning 45,000 gallons a day out there. Also, driving around, and I read the Connell graphic where it was stating that The roadways are the big concern in the county. I just ask the county residents to be patient because there are a lot of roadways. I just drove up on Klamath where there was a washout. That's been fixed. There's a lot of damage across this county, which is one of the biggest counties in the state. And our road department are doing a very fine job of trying to get to everywhere, but they can't be everywhere at once. So just give them some time and they'll get there to get it fixed. That's the end of my presentation. And with that, we don't have the administrator here, so we don't have no administration office business. The code of conduct has been pulled for this meeting, so we are on to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment?
Real quick, as an FYI, so our jail does have mental health services in it. We have 2.5 full-time health officers that are assigned to the jail just for your own consumption, for the public's consumption. Whenever there's a mental health issue in the jail that comes to us, then we reach out to Greater Columbia Behavioral Mental Health to have them come in and do evaluations, as they are the ASRs or ASOs or whatever acronym. So we are constantly monitoring mental health issues in the jail already, to the tune, I have to look, but it's part of our medical services. It's a private contract with a local doctor and their staff, but it's quite expensive. You're already paying for that service in the jails.
I hope this is the last time, as your elected auditor, I come up here for public comment. And my suggestion, I hope, is and a lot of people do watch online or they'll watch later on, and in the interest of the public being able to find out when the board's interacting with fellow electeds and not necessarily the public, and I can talk to, I don't know what the policy looks like or what you're thinking, but it just occurred to me it might make sense to have a time in the meeting for elected comment, and it possibly falls with a back and forth or a question or something else, if that's of interest to the board. But quite frankly, over the years, and from kind of the way things have gone in here, it became necessary for fellow electeds to have to come to the public comment, and if somebody from the public ever wanted to come back and find out the sheriff's thoughts, or the treasurer or anybody else that comes to it under this, they would have to go back and listen to every public comment. I'm not sure how the clerk indexes it, but it would be an opportunity for people to drill right in on the video and find out when the electeds are interacting, as because clearly I'm up here not as the public, I'm up here right now as an elected official. So anyway, it's a thought that could be, you guys have to design your conduct and your guidelines and all that stuff, and even people's interest in going over and not going over. Sometimes when I have something to say in my official capacity, I guess I don't want to be constrained by 3 minutes if it's relevant to a topic the board is interested in or has a back and forth. So anyway, I just realized some of the things that are being brought up are important. And so from an elected to elected, and without workshops, it's hard to get that in a public meeting. So thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, not responding to the public comments, just making an observation that many bodies use alternating workshop meetings and action meetings, and that may be something we want to consider.
Yes, because public comment is for the public, and every elected official is pretty much a member of our public in Franklin County. So I take it as they're coming as their individual, as part of the community, and not their elected position. Mr. Bowen.
Thank you. I really appreciate all three of you seem to have done what has been asked of you on multiple occasions, and I want to say that it's really appreciated. You giving a more complete and detailed accounting of what you do on our behalf on a daily basis, and I sure do pay attention to it closely, and I know that there's quite a number of other people that do it, and I agree with our auditor that for them to come and give a report or something on a fairly consistent basis, I think is very helpful. I think that in this day and age that the public is starting to pay closer attention to what's going on, and they would like to have more details. And I know that certainly I've had questions about something that was said in the past, and it's very convenient. And I wanted to say thank you for the public format and the way that it is available on YouTube, that you can go and very rapidly go back and to recollect what has happened with a video and the stance that was taken by the different commissioners and for different reasons and different ways. So I wanted to say thank you for that.
Anybody else? Public comment? Anybody on the telephone? So with that, I don't believe we have a closed session, do we? We do have a closed session? Okay. And before we go into closed session, I believe I'm supposed to make the announcement that there's going to be a night meeting? No?
We are trying to schedule a night meeting up in Connell. I do not know the facility yet, but I need to have a few dates so that I can contact the superintendent of schools today to schedule that. So if you can look at your calendars and let me know ASAP that we can have 2 dates. I'd like to have that before the end of the meeting, that everyone is available to meet for a special commissioners meeting open to the public to discuss I wish he was here because I wasn't in the meeting.
The hospital districts?
Hospital districts, ambulance, fire.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Emergency services.
So I have spoken to Jennifer Johnson, our chief deputy prosecutor, and she has said that we would need to do it as a special meeting, because if it was a regular meeting, it would be 30-day notice, and they want to do this as soon as possible. I do know that we have the 21st here at night. I was thinking maybe a Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know what your schedules are, but if we could get 2 dates nailed down, and I can make arrangements with the facilities to do that.
Okay, so we'll get back to you on that. I think I see everybody's grabbing their calendars and checking. You're saying the 23rd of Thursday?
If we could do either the 16th or the 23rd.
The 23rd works better for me.
23rd's better.
23rd works for me also.
And is there an alternate date if we can't get any?
16 works for me. Either of those dates.
So
Starting at 7?
If you prefer 7, that would be fine.
So I am in Olympia meeting with the legislature on the 16th, so that's not possible. 23rd I could make work.
Okay. Well, I'll go from there. 23rd at 7, is 7 okay with everybody?
6 or 7, either one is fine with me. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So with that, we'll move into closed session under the RCW 42.30.140, parentheses 4. With our, and the, how long?
Sam, how much time do you need?
Gosh, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Let's say 10.
Let's say 10.
Mr. Chairman, are we anticipating an executive session after the closed session?
I don't think so, no. It says as needed, and I don't think we have an executive session today.
Are we anticipating any action out of the closed session? Potentially, okay. I ask those questions so that people who are waiting, if they know there's not going to be any subsequent action, would feel free to leave, but it sounds like there may be action out of the closed session. Thank you.
So we'll recess into closed session. We've come out of closed session with no decisions made, and we're going back into closed session, same RCW for another 10 minutes. Come out of closed session. We've come out of closed session, and we're back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.